Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you and your family, and I also want to thank Secretary Hagel for his service as Secretary of Defense and to our nation. He took the point in Vietnam. He took the point for our Defense Department, and we're grateful for what he's done. I was privileged to travel with some other senators recently to the Middle East, and we talked to a number of the nations there. And I just want to make sure that, in your mind, do you believe when we look at ISIS, our goal should be to eliminate them on a permanent basis?
Yes, I do.
Well, one of my concerns is time. And what I mean by that is when you look at the map of where they were a year ago, where they are now, they've substantially grown. And so we have windows that we're working in. And when we look at our plan, I'm concerned about how, when you look at the depth and the size of our plan, that what it really does, they have 30,000, we're talking hundreds. It gives them time to grow even more, and you worry about a tipping point where X crosses Y, and they become much more difficult. So what kind of time plan are you looking at to get movement on this?
I think it's important to strike back at ISIL as we're doing from the air, but to begin to retake territory as soon as we can build the forces on the ground, which will be local forces, that are capable of sustaining defeat when we have achieved defeat in a given location. So I hope that in coming months, and again, I'm not in a position to have any special information about this or talk to our commanders or so forth, but it's my understanding that in coming months, the Iraqi security forces, assisted by us, will begin to take back territory from ISIL. And I think you're right that it's important to get that territory back soon, because you don't want them to settle in, and you don't want the population to settle into having ISIL rule them in their barbaric way.
And when we talked to the King yesterday and to others in the region, what they said is, we're not asking you to fight our battle, but we need you as a partner, shoulder to shoulder, to help us train, to help us plan, to help us implement. Is that what you see our ground role as?
Yes, I think exactly right. You're referring to the assistance we provide to the Jordanians, if I understand the question.
Right, and
Absolutely.
to the other nations are looking at the same thing.
That's right.
One of the things we had testimony on yesterday was in regards to, switching themes a little bit, the DOD and the VA with drug formularies. We lost 479 young men and women to suicide in 2013 who were in the military. We lost 132 in combat. We don't want to lose any more. So part of what General Corelli was telling us is that with the drug formularies, it causes dramatic change for those who are coming off and going into the VA. All of a sudden they look up, they're being forced on different drugs and stuff. As Secretary of Defense, are there things you can do to help us with that?
I think there definitely are and must be. I think the relationship between the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs has to be a relationship like this, because it's one soldier. They cross the boundary from one to the other when they move and become a veteran, but it's one soldier. And so I am familiar, or that is, I remember from years back when I was in the department, of this question of the different formularies. People DOD calls a drug one thing and VA calls it another thing, and they have one set of dosages and the other.
And our troops,
and we've got to get these together. It's one patient. It's one.
They get lost in the shuffle.
Exactly.
And it's at a most critical time to them personally. And so your absolute commitment to that, and I know it is going to be critical. I wanted to ask you one other thing, as I'm starting to get a little short on time, and that is your expertise in the nuclear area. And I was wondering if you are familiar with a report issued by Madeline Creedon and Rear Admiral Fanta. They did a department-wide nuclear enterprise review. It is classified, but it is very sobering. And I just want to make sure that I didn't know if you had seen it yet. If you have, will you take ownership of the issue and ensure its findings are addressed?
Thank you, Senator. I have not had access to that particular report, but with respect to the nuclear enterprise, I have a long history in that regard and am a strong believer in a safe, secure, and reliable nuclear arsenal for the United States. And that encompasses both the nuclear weapons themselves and the delivery systems of the Department of Defense and the command and control systems for it. So I can well understand if they're calling attention to the enduring need to make that a priority. That's another thing that's not in the newspapers every day. Thank God, nuclear weapons being used aren't in the newspapers every day, but it's a bedrock of our security, and we can never forget that. And so continuing quality and excellence in the nuclear enterprise is very important. I am committed to that.
Senator,
Thank you.